What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis and today we have a new review for you from Geelang Hobby. This is the X-UFO 85X. Seems like there was another 85X out there, many 85Xs it seems. Beta FPV being the first one to do that even over a year ago now, but here we are with the X-UFO 85X, and this one seems to be kind of like an homage to a lot of other Cinewhoops out there. They've chosen to put a bigger power system on this one, and it is heavier than some of the other ones out there. And I feel like Geelang is kind of geekbuying.com's competitor to Eachine. And some of you guys like Eachine, some of you guys don't like Eachine, but I reviewed the Eachine Cinecan on the channel probably about a couple weeks ago now, and it did pretty well. So this one will be a direct competitor to, in my mind, the Eachine Cinecan. We're going to talk about the pros and cons about the X-UFO, and we're going to talk about whether it can freestyle. We're going to show you how well it can do cinema, all the pros and cons in this video. But first off, before we start jumping into a lot of the specs and the way they built this one up, let's go ahead and show you some flight footage, and I'll show you what this X-UFO 85X can do out in the field. Here we go. Okay guys, before we get started with this flight review, I have to show you how windy it is. Look at the tree branches moving up there. This is definitely too windy for outdoor whoop weather, but we're going to go ahead and fly this quad anyway because it's a 4S quad. Cinewhoop, it's a little bit heavier than some of the other whoops out there, so it should be able to handle it on 4S. I also have a pretty nice tree canopy here, kind of giving me a little bit of a wind shadow, and if you can find a heavily treed area like this, it'll break down some of the wind and kind of give you a chance to fly. But check this out, stock battery 4S 260 going down already, 30 seconds and I'm done. So I had to use one of my Tattoo 4S 550s, but right now the battery sagged out just below 15 volts, and with those motors it's drawing quite a few amps, so hopefully I can get 3 minutes out of this battery. But I'm just gonna kind of take it easy and see what kind of lines I can fly and what I can get away with this quad. The neat thing is that I noticed right away that the tune is pretty good on here, and it holds a pretty solid line around the park. I can fly low to the ground, and the camera, the FPV camera on this quad, I'm not hating it. I'm not hating the Tarsier. It looks good. There's not a lot of lag in it, and the 4K view, it's downsampled to 1080p for YouTube. The compression, who knows what YouTube has done to this video, but I felt like it looked pretty good on my home computer. You can also shoot in 2.7K at 60 frames per second with the Cadex Tarsier, which is what most people shoot with. It's just a smaller file size and it's easier to edit. Watch out folks, whoops coming through, and most people don't even notice a tiny whoop out in the park. This one is a little louder than some of the other ones I've flown, but people really don't seem to care because this thing is basically a little toy, and it's not a big phantom that's spying on everybody, so no one really cares. But the cool thing about this quad is that you can kind of slow it down a lot and explore the tree canopy, really get up inside those branches and fly around. It has decent speed to it, and it is a pretty predictable flying quad. So for the new guys, this would be an easy beginner quad. Just make sure you stick to a 4S 550 battery, and you're going to have to mod it to use some type of regular traditional battery strap. The battery strap that came with it is just not going to work out for anything that this quad needs. But again, a super predictable flying quad. It was enjoyable to fly. I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to freestyle it. You can get some awesome small gaps with it. And I felt like I could see really well with this quad. Even though it was kind of an overcast day and very windy, I felt like I could do more with this quad. And that's the good news. With a TBS crossfire antenna on here as well, you could really send it out there, but with your limited flight time, you don't want to send it too far because you're not going to make it back for sure. But pros and cons. Con is it's not a freestyle quad. Pro is that the cinema aspect of it seems to be good. And the other good thing is that with the 550 battery, I was able to get over 3 minutes flight time. Tiny aerobatic capability, but not bad. I can't hate on this quad too much because I see it does have some potential. Let's go head back into the studio now, guys, and let's put it on the bench. Here we go. Alright guys, welcome back from the flight test. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about two different things here right away. Number one, freestyle aspect of this quad. It did have the washout on some of those big maneuvers that I tried to do. It would kind of tumble backwards if I tried to do any kind of hard loops or really tight turns. This quad will kind of lose its edge, and the accelerometer kind of freaks out. The gyro loses it, and you just tumble, which can result in some unexpected crashes. So that's one thing to think about with this quad. It's not really a freestyle quad as much as the Eachine Cinecan was. The Cinecan can double as either just a cruiser for cinema stuff, getting in those small tight spaces, whereas and it can freestyle, whereas this one is really only a cinema style quad in my mind. You could do some light freestyle with it, but I think the extra weight of this quad is probably its downfall when it comes to freestyle. So you might want to stick to cinema stuff. Now, the first thing you want to do when you get this quad is go ahead and set it up in beta flight, set up your switches. If you want to use stability mode, you can do that. It does have beta flight. I believe it's the Maytech F411 firmware on there, and it has an F4 flight controller, which I've seen before. This is the Supra F4 right here. It also has 12 amp BL Heli ESCs. That's a 4-in-1 ESC, and everything is dampened in here, which is cool. You can see that red dampen right there. And I said it was kind of a non-traditional stack type setup because they have the Tarsier up above the original stack down here. You have these motors plug and play on the bottom, and the motors themselves, they're running the Avant Micro 2-inch props. You're likely not to damage these because of the prop guards, but let me just show you. Let's zoom into these real quick. These are a little bit larger than the Eachine Cinecan. These little guys are 1204 5000 kV motors, and they look really, really nice actually. I think they look really nice. 2 bolts on top. They have plenty of bracing on the bottom of each prop guard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 braces in there. Another brace in the middle, around on each side, all the way around. And I gotta say, I wasn't a big fan of this type of battery strap that they included with it. I took the original one off here. It has 2 little clips on the side right here, but I just took this bottom plate off right here. It has 4 screws that you can release, and I put a diatone strap on there because I could really only fit the stock battery that came along with this quad. The 4S260 I feel like was too small for the quad's power system. I was only getting a little over a minute's flight time with this battery, and it came fully charged to me. It does have an XT30, which is great, but this is a smaller 4S battery than I actually own. Most of my 4S batteries are going to be 450 milliamp or bigger, and that's usually what I fly as far as 4S quads go. The 4S power whoops out there, most of them need 450 or bigger, and primarily because they have larger motors to be able to handle 4S, whereas the Cinecan on the other flip side of this coin is that this one is running 1103s, much smaller motors, and running 3S on this one is going to get me 3.5 minutes if I'm cruising, whereas if I'm trying to run something like a 4S 300 milliamp or the stock battery, it's just not going to cut it. You're going to need something as large as a 550 to even get close to that 3-minute flight time on this particular quad. So that's one, maybe one downfall about the quad, is that in a way I think they overmotored this one. I think that the motors are just a little bit too big, probably drawing a little bit too much power in the battery that you choose to put on there, especially the stock battery. It just seems like it's not even close to being the right fit for this quad. Now, I do like the fact that they have a fairly durable canopy on here, and I think it's cool they have the recessed LEDs underneath the canopy, and that floating Tarsier board is right here. I'll just show you that real quick before I plug it in. You can see there's the micro SD card port just above all of that wires, this wire nest right here. We have the USB port right there. That's for the tarsier, not the actual flight board. The flight board plug is just underneath and through there, and you'll need the data cable to access that. It has an extra long plug on there, which is cool. And now let me go ahead and plug it in for you so you can see the LEDs. This is pretty cool. I don't know if anyone's shown these yet, but these are pretty neat. And they move back and forth. And when you start recording with your tarsier, you're going to see this green light right here. You have two buttons on this side. I believe it was the front one. If you push the front one, this will start flashing green, and that lets you know that the camera's recording. You can also set up the tarsier to do an auto record as soon as you plug in the quad. But I think that the LEDs actually look pretty cool here. Those do. Those are really nice. I haven't seen that level of detail as far as LEDs are concerned. That's actually pretty cool. I wish more bind and flies out there had some cool LEDs on them. So they took a little bit of extra time to make it fancy for you guys, which is nice. Now let's take a look at what's in the box. So in the box, it actually does come with quite a few extras. You get 2 sets of the Avant micro props, the Tarsier ND8 filter in there. You get an extra battery strap, which I'm not using those battery straps. You also get the 4S 260 milliamp battery. You get a screwdriver, an Allen wrench. You get a receiver binding procedure manual, which is nice. You get the Cadex control board here. It also has onboard Wi-Fi though, so you can hook it up to the Cadex FPV app, which I usually do. You can press and hold the Wi-Fi button on the side of the tarsier and connect to your phone, which is really cool. You get that data cable with that extra long stem on it right here, and if you're not using a data cable, you won't be able to connect to Betaflight, so keep that in mind. You also get a pretty decent Geelang started manual, and that's kind of funny. It's a little play on their logo, maybe Geelang. But what's cool is they take you through FR Sky, Fly Sky, DSMX, and they also have a TBS option, which I don't see the TBS instructions in here. And they have how to change the band, the channel. There's a button on the VTX that's included, and it goes up to 200 milliwatt, but I believe it did have smart audio already set up on that VTX as well. It looks like the scale is saying 85.7 grams, and with the 4S 260 battery, let's just slide that in the battery strap here. And put that on the scale. And the weight with the battery is going to be 117 grams. Total takeoff weight. Not too bad. So let's go ahead and give some final thoughts and opinions. Let me give you my honest feelings about the Geelang X-UFO 85X. I feel like this was kind of a all style and no substance type of design. We have a ton of engineering work going on here, but at the end of the day, what seems to be a great thing with the larger power system, I think that an 85 millimeter frame needs to have something like 1103 to 1104 type motors. When these companies put 1106 motors, and they even go larger with something like these new 1204s, I haven't seen these on a lot of quads before. I think that they just turn into battery eaters and sometimes add extra vibrations on something under 100 millimeter frame. So when you put a ton of power on a smaller frame, it adds more vibration into the camera, and also flips out the flight controller, which happened on this one, and that results in washout. The other thing is that you're running a smaller frame, so you need to carry a smaller battery, right? You want to run something like a 300 milliamp or a 450 milliamp. But with this power system on here, I had to run 450 to 550 to 650 just to be able to get my 3-minute flight time mark. And that's just adding extra weight to this, and reducing the freestyle performance even further by doing that. Whereas something like the Eachine Cinecan has the 1103s, that is sort of the right type of power system to put on an 85 millimeter type of frame. 1103 to 1104 motors will get you a longer flight time and will actually still freestyle quite well because it lightens everything up, gives you a great power to weight ratio. And that's what happened with the Cinecan. It was kind of the perfect storm as far as being able to cinema and freestyle. It has sort of the best of both worlds, whereas this one has more weight, bigger power system, so shorter flight times. And that's my biggest criticism of this design, is that it's primarily a cruiser, and that's pretty much all it will be, unless you motor down on this particular design. But then again, it is a little bit heavier, so I'm going to rate this one in probably about a 4.1 out of 5. I hope that the future version of this one, the V2, will be just a little bit smaller power system, because I think they shot really high here with high expectations, but the included battery only getting me about 1.5 minute flight time was kind of a disappointment. So I will leave it at that. You guys can go back and review the flight footage again if you'd like to, but that's going to be my score for the X-UFO, and another honest review on the channel. Guys, take care, and hope you're doing some awesome flying out there this fall. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.